It starts with Matsumoto and Araki. Both with a passion for words, having created dictionaries together, talk about a big project, the Great Passage. The problem: Araki can no longer dedicate himself full-time to such a project supervised by Matsumoto, and for the younger generation, it is not a very popular endeavor to write dictionaries, let alone one with 220,000 words in them. It would seem like a hopeless task, yet Araki is confident that there has to be someone who would heed this deeply unique and important calling. He asks around the company, but to no avail. People are not just disinterested, but can't even think of someone who might be. Something in him senses that there has to be someone out there who can recognize the importance of something like the words we use and defining them. The charismatic Nishioka, who works with Araki in the dictionary department, recalls running into someone who also works at their company, who he brings up while they talk about finding a new potential candidate to work with. Though Nishioka mentions him, he does not think at all that this guy is qualified, saying Araki would cringe upon meeting him. But Araki is curious to hear about this man who seems to sit in Nishioka's shadow, and upon hearing he works in the sales department, makes his way there. In a scene where time has slowed, he patiently throws his gaze across the room, and without asking anyone for the name of this man, simply slowly panning his view along the office, following exclusively the irrational signal of his intuition, he finally and slowly comes upon the man he has been looking for. He places his hand upon his shoulder, confident that this is Majime, the man Nishioka had spoken of. After Araki asked the question of how to define the word right, Majime asked for clarification and promptly figured out a fail-safe way to describe the word, saying that if you face the North Star, it is the place from where the sun starts to rise. Without much more qualification, Araki is so confident in his intuition and hires him on the spot. Even at Nishioka's disbelief, since he had a bad first impression of Majime at the store, but he knows his heart is in the right place, and quickly accepts. And just like that, Majime finds himself in a new environment with new responsibilities. He had studied literature at school, but seems at disbelief of having just entered to join the project of making a new dictionary, let alone one that will take over a decade to make. He seems to be absolutely perfect for the job. He focuses a lot on what kind of words he uses to express himself, and also struggles greatly with expressing his own emotions, giving him an opportunity to learn a lot in the process. Someone so grounded in the reality of words can really feel that they are alive. And even though it seems like a daunting task, he's up for it. Upon arriving at his home, an old home where he lives with a grandmother named Take, she can sense that there is something bothering him about all this though. The struggle he worries about is hoping he would fit in and be a helpful person to work with, which are kind of silly worries for his age, like Take says, but she also tells him that exactly because he does worry about this, he will be totally fine. And so, the decade-long project starts. The whole process of collecting words, finding and writing down new words, comparing other similar dictionaries to see which words they make use of, and thinking of completely new words to add for the dawn of a new age involving more and more technology. This is a challenge that is not to be underestimated in a radically changing landscape. Not only all that, but working on the project with only 3 full-time employees and 2 supervisors makes them also very understaffed to take on such a gigantic project. And of course, having such a challenging fate ahead of them, they are underappreciated in their company, with a rumor spreading that they would cancel the Great Passage and get rid of the entire dictionary department. It is really a terrible situation. To take on such a task of wanting to weave such a big boat that could cross the ocean of words and be a shining light in this complex world, and have no upper management support at all. Matsumoto thought of maybe revealing more of the merit of what they are working on, but Araki says that they already had read the essay that Matsumoto wrote proposing the Great Passage. I would have thought myself that the only possible way would be to strengthen the merit and show the resolve of everybody included. But Nishioka had other plans. Focusing less on their own merit, his insight is more about the social atmosphere at large in which this project exists in. If they would start to spread information about the Great Passage throughout the company, and also start to include potential outside help, like experts in various fields, the effect the cancellation would have would become much more costly. I find that genius, and something I would struggle to come up with. And it works, but it comes with some costs. They are being loaded with even more projects, and sadly, Nishioka himself, in true company optimizing fashion, is forced to leave the dictionary department for the PR department, starting in springtime. Not only does that really impede with his own wishes of wanting to continue working on the dictionary, after finally feeling like he's starting to actually enjoy it, he also is unsure about it all because his girlfriend he's living with works in that exact department, which is something they keep secret. In the end, he seems to be fine with it, and he promises that no matter the distance now between him and Majime, he would always be there to continue to support the project in other ways that he can. I think their relationship is really a beautiful one, both being functionally really opposite people, and I wonder if the book this anime is based on goes more into their relationship, because as much as their bond is well depicted, it almost feels like there are some crucial points missing. Though, I don't fault the anime for that. I find it amazing how heartfelt this whole story is in just 11 episodes. So, they continue working on without Nishioka, and start working on side projects they're being tasked with to keep the department afloat. As much as the Great Passage is the real boat they are weaving to succeed in their mission to create a new big standard to express oneself in Japanese on all sorts of human dimensions, thought and emotion, it is, like Matsumoto says, not the worst thing to happen. Since Majime never worked on a dictionary before this one, let alone created one, it would be a great learning experience for him, a prototype to the real passion project. This is important, especially for such a long journey, to map the ocean they are crossing, to first prototype and explore multiple directions, before a final iteration and production. It is essential for finding the deepest spot in the ocean. This journey is not the only one in Majime's life, since he suddenly has an unexpected roommate arrive, the granddaughter of Take, Kaguya. With a big startle, coming upon her at night, he wakes up from a dream, thinking it all had been one. Twice surprised, he realizes it was all real, and he saw shining in the moonlight this beauty holding the household cat named Tiger. Since Majime struggles to express his emotions, he finds it basically impossible to answer with any words at all. It doesn't help that he seems to have all kinds of feelings surface so quickly, even since the initial dream. And with that, he has now not only a journey across the ocean ahead of him, but a trip to the moon as well, which he tries to express in a 15-page love letter to this competent lady he crushed on. Similar to him, she's also on her journey, namely honing that precise discipline of becoming a Japanese chef. I think it is essential for people to have such goals, and in that way I find them a great match. The path to healing is ultimately our own, and the only way we can walk is our way. In any case, after Majime is anxiously thinking about giving her the love letter, asking Nishioka to review it first, who then sneakily also made a copy of it, he gets the suggestion to just give it to her just like that, with its complex kanji and all. So the next morning, he tries to escape her by waking up early, failing, yet succeeding to run away, and now has to endure the torture of wondering what the answer is all day. At least I would find it torturous. But maybe it was for the best, since Kaguya didn't even realize what she had just read, and upon realizing it really was a love letter, nervously jumped away. Already crawling into despair, Majime felt that this was his rejection, but instead, she had to read it again, and she told him she feels the same for him. As time went on, the Ferris wheel kept turning, and 13 years have passed. Take is no longer alive, while Tiger still is. The Great Passage is still in production, and after all this time, they just had their first new hire. She worked first in the fashion magazine world, and although she quickly found a way to become useful, is worried that she would fit in the dictionary world at all. After becoming more familiar with them, and drunkenly confessing her worries, she still needed some reassurance. Nishioka, who had accompanied the others on their way home, sees her and talks to her. Similarly to Araki's test 13 years ago, Nishioka now asks her the same question. How would you define right? Going through a similar thought process, she landed on the exact same as Majime's answer. With that, he knew she was exactly right for the job and encouraged her onwards. Yet, it is still not an easy task to start seeing through someone so inwardly oriented as Majime, and she struggles with figuring him out. She asks Nishioka, who, even though he seems to play the Epimethean counterpart to Majime's Promethean foresight, had prepared for exactly this moment. He gets her on a treasure hunt to find the clues he placed a decade ago, in order for her to get an insight into Majime's complex soul. These copies of his love letter now come in handy to give her an idea of what type of character he is. It honestly is a bit invasive for my liking, but since Nishioka did try to make really sure that she is someone who would fit in well with the project, I'll let this one slide. As the whole thing is starting to reach its finale, the Ferris wheel closer and closer on the horizon, they continue to run into trouble. The paper for the book is being worked on, but rejected twice by Majime for not being sticky enough. But this is really not something derailing their plan. What she notices is a word is missing. What a nightmare. After being so close to the finish line, a missing word, like a thorn in one's side, unexpectedly comes back to haunt them. This is a sinking feeling, and Majime expects that if there is one word missing, more must be missing as well. So, they set up a task force to check every single word again. In a way I thought, well, isn't this something one should have done anyway? But, miraculously, they have been so thorough in their time on the project that the only word, course, as in blood coursing through one's body, was missing. The only one. While working on this final phase of checking everything again, Majime had a brief dream, in which he was losing all the words as they're being sucked into a hole ripped into his inner reality. What could this mean? I always like to speculate on things like this, but it's easy to step over the line of evidence doing so. I wonder, is it surfacing something else he had lost in the past? Similarly to how in his dream of Kaguya, pain was the primary emotion surfacing in that moment? Without a backstory available, who knows? I think we all lost something we wish to regain again, something hidden beneath a lot of pain, so I'm pretty certain he did as well. Only thing to safely say though, is he is worried deeply about losing more words, after learning he had lost one of them. The whole project is finalized, with a cute mascot from PR genius Nishioka, but sadly, Matsumoto could not see it through in the end. He had a meaningful meeting with them beforehand, voicing his feelings about the importance of words and dictionaries, and not in some sentimental recollection of the past, but a matured and ripened vision towards the future. He says that Japan is a country that stands out in the dictionaries they write, because compared to many other countries, their standards of words is not set by some arm of the government, who usually write dictionaries out of national pride, but grows from below, through the passion of a few individuals with free hearts and minds. This had been the case before too, with a famous one being written entirely by just one person. I find that enormously important, that the way we describe things comes from the rawness and authenticity of the heart, and does not submit to some creed or code in how one should interpret and how something is defined. Language is a fundamental aspect of our ability to communicate to others and to reflect on ourselves. Yet it is both a curse and a cure, since it can limit itself to a narrow horizon that shuts itself off from the truth or can be a guiding light to the real complexity of our feelings that are an ocean with deeply complex and conventionally unsayable emotions. So they can function as a light, but also as an occluding dark cloud. I genuinely love what Matsumoto says about dictionaries, and I hope this is something we can all take to heart as we are seeing the reality of language change profoundly in this age of the internet and technology. The novel this is based on came out in 2011, the anime in 2016, and just in this short time span, we've seen leaps in language technology we could largely not imagine less than a decade ago. What does it mean to write a dictionary, coming from the bottom up like this today? I do hope there is a Majime out there who has something like it inside his heart waiting on the horizon, and doesn't stop, like the Ferris wheel, pursuing that dream until the wheel turns golden.